Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Massive thanks to the authors, Roxi2Star and ThatOneZed for allowing me to adapt their awesome story. Follow the link in the description to check out more of their works. Today we will be listening to the 22nd part of What If Deku Had Both One for All and All for One. If you enjoy, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing down below, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you get notified when videos go live. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Chapter 44, Taking on the Todorokis. Chapter by Roxi2Star. He'd have to move into the dorms in a month's time. Dad wasn't thrilled, but ultimately he understood it was for Izuku and his classmates' protection. UA had the finest security available. Even more than All Might's apartment complex. Plus, Izuku would be lying if he said the concept of living in a dorm wasn't appealing. Living with his classmates, it'd be like hanging out all the time. Not to mention the idea of living with Shoto was downright intoxicating. The thought of his boyfriend only being a few doors away, maybe if they got lucky their rooms would be next to each other. Honestly, even if their rooms were as far away from each other as possible, Izuku would still make it his mission to get into that room. Sleeping in a bed with Shoto was amazing. He made the bad dreams go away. It was impossible to dream about All for One and that dark bar when he was surrounded by warmth and the smell of campfires. Dad also didn't like this. Izuku, standing in the living room, stomping his foot impatiently. A habit he'd inherited from his bunny quirk. He couldn't seem to stop. He was dressed nicely, a pair of well-fitted dark jean shorts, his short white socks, a long-sleeved thin black shirt with a blue short-sleeved hoodie with yellow writing that read Plus Ultra on it. It was actually a cute look. Dad, please, I'm in a hurry. I don't want to be late. I just don't like the idea of doing this, Dad said. We know Endeavor is dangerous and you're purposefully antagonizing him. I'm also not thrilled with you being someplace out of the house without me. You were kidnapped a week ago. Izuku rolled his eyes. Dad, I'm literally going to be staying a night in the number 2 hero's house. It has just as good security as we do here. Besides, Endeavor isn't going to touch me. He knows I'll talk and people will believe me. I'm All Might's stepson now after all. Plus, he seems to be really trying to change for Shoto. I want to help the guy be better if only to make Shoto's life easier. That doesn't mean I'm not going to test that child abuser's patience first, Izuku said. Now get your keys and drive me to my boyfriend's house, please. He's got you there, Toshinori said. I trust NG enough that he won't harm Izuku. He harmed his own child. He's abusing him. Abused him. He hasn't since the sport festival actually. Shoto was telling me about it. Endeavor hasn't been nearly as pushy with training. Been giving Shoto a lot of space. So I think he's serious about this. I mean, I still hate his guts and do not forgive him for even laying a finger on Shoto, but I gotta give the guy credit for effort, Izuku said. Dad, please. I just want to spend some time with Shoto. I want to support him. Dad groaned, pinching the bridge of his nose. Izuku. I'd feel better if you at least changed your hoodie. Please? Just this one thing and I'll let you go. Ugh, fine. He rolled his eyes and stomped back to his bedroom, changing the old All Might hoodie for another short-sleeved hoodie, a yellow one this time. He came out of the bedroom and held his arms up. Better. Thank you. Get your shoes, let's go, Dad said, grabbing his keys from the counter. They both slid into their shoes, Izuku's overnight bag slung around his shoulders. Have a fun night. Toshinori called from his chair. Izuku turned and waved. See you tomorrow. Love you. Izuku yelled and bolted from the apartment down the hall. He didn't see Toshinori tear up, but he did hear him call I love you too, in return. He got to the elevator, and spotted his father wasn't behind him. Dad, let's go. He yelled. Dad came out of the apartment and jogged down the hall towards him. Relax, I'm right here. He ruffled Izuku's hair and pushed the elevator call button. So, promise me you'll be safe, okay? I don't mind you pushing a few of Endeavor's buttons, but the elevator door opened. Izuku followed his father inside. He hit the ground floor button. Don't overdo it. The last thing I need is you getting killed by a pro hero because you kept insinuating his dick is small. I wouldn't insinuate it. I'd tell him right to his ugly face. Not helping, his father said, pinching his nose. I mean it, Izuku. Don't let your mouth get you into trouble. Izuku was definitely going to get his mouth into trouble. Maybe not to Endeavor, but he had plans for Shoto. While he'd been timid about doing anything in Toshinorai's apartment, especially since his dad found them in bed the next day after his birthday, which hadn't been that long ago. He had no qualms about disrespecting Endeavor in his own house by fucking his son. He didn't care if Endeavor had him staying in a room across the house, he was spending the night in Shoto's bed, or so help him. "I promise I'll behave, Dad," Izuku lied, like a liar. Dad smiled down at him. "You're a good kid," he finally said. "Thank you." Izuku only felt a little guilty. Izuku waved to his father as he made his way up the Todoroki walkway. He had his phone in one hand, sending the text to Shoto saying he'd arrived. He made it to the front door and knocked. No sooner than his hand connected with the wood did the door open. Shoto was there, wearing a very cute outfit. A thin black t-shirt that clung to his body, a loose white button-up worn open over it, paired with a pair of loose-fitting black slacks held up with a belt. His hair was half up in a ponytail, stray pieces falling around his face nicely. He sort of reminded Izuku of an idle street fashion. "Hey Bun." He offered Izuku a small smile. "Hey there Tiger. Do I need to arrest you?" "I think it's illegal to look this fine," he said, almost too smoothly. "You're gonna give too many people heart palpitations." Shoto rolled his eyes and grabbed Izuku's wrist to pull him side. Izuku shut it behind him and slipped out of his sneakers, eagerly taking the house slippers from Shoto. "So who's all here tonight?" "Everyone, actually." "Well." He dropped his voice. "Almost. I haven't said anything to Dad or my siblings. I don't want to get their hopes up until we have something more concrete." He led him down the hall, towards the bedroom wing. "So please don't say anything about Tuya." Izuku nodded of course. "Though I'm surprised Natsuo is here. Doesn't he usually stay at a friend's place until late when Endeavor is home?" "Normally. But I told him you were going to be here to meet Dad as my boyfriend and he said you couldn't pay me to miss this, so I think he's expecting a show." Shoto led him to his bedroom. "Here, you can put your stuff down. Dad's already in the dining room waiting." He tossed his bag onto the futon. "Does he have a futon he wants me to sleep on? Not that I'm gonna, but still." "No clue. Hasn't said anything about it," Shoto said, before he grabbed him and pulled him into a passionate kiss. "Sorry, I had to get that out. Let's go." Once again, Shoto grabbed him and dragged him from the room. Izuku, still feeling a little punch-drunk from the sudden kiss, followed him dopily, giggling all the while. Shoto pulled him into the dining room. The table wasn't set yet, but Fuyamai could be heard in the kitchen, clattering around while cooking. At the table was Natsuo, who had his face in his phone, pointedly sitting as far away from Endeavor as possible. Endeavor sat at the head position, cross-legged. He looked up as they entered the room. "Ah, Shoto, Midoriya. How are you and your father faring?" he asked, slowly standing to greet him. Izuku hesitated. How should he play this? On the one hand, he did genuinely want to give Endeavor a chance to make things better, if only for Shoto's sake, and he did promise his father he'd behave himself as well. On the other hand, fuck Endeavor. Izuku had seen far worse. "Yo, second place," he greeted with a small wave. Shoto hid a smile behind his free hand as Natsuo choked on his own spit with laughter. "We're doing good. Healing up just fine. We just moved into All Might's apartment, so that's been kind of hectic, but we're good." Was that too much? Dangling his father's relationship with All Might? He should pull back just a little. "Thank you, by the way. I know you were on the team that came to rescue me. So again, thank you, Endeavor." Endeavor didn't seem to know how to quite handle that. He sighed deeply. "Yes, well, it was a very high priority mission. Not to mention you're very important to Shoto." He turned and sat back down. "Sit, Fuyamai should be done cooking soon." Shoto and Izuku sat down next to each other. "So how are you doing, Natsuo-san?" Izuku asked, leaning forward slightly. "Don't worry about honorifics with me, Midoriya," Natsuo said, waving his hand. "I'm glad you're doing better." "I'm good. Just enjoying some time off from school." Fuyamai came into the room carrying some food. "Oh hello, Midoriya-kun," she said. "I didn't hear you come in," she said with a smile and set down food on the table. "Do you need help, Fuyamai-san?" Izuku asked, moving to stand. No please, stay seated, she said and disappeared back into the kitchen. She was only gone a moment before returning with the rest of the food. Okay, here we are, she said happily before taking the seat closest to Endeavor. It's so nice to have everyone home for dinner. They began to serve themselves and Endeavor took a bite. This is very good Fuyamai, he said. Aw thanks Dad. She gave him a nervous smile. Endeavor looked at Izuku, chewing thoughtfully. Shoto. Tell me. How did you and Midoriya end up together? I was only aware you were rivals and his father has been training you, he asked. Shoto sighed. The hero killer incident, Shoto said. We'd liked each other from before that but that pushed us over the edge. He nodded right. Right well, he coughed into his hand. Izuku sighed softly. Endeavor was so awkward. He just couldn't seem to figure out what to say. How is the training going? Does Midoriya-san have anything else planned for you? Izuku smirked. Oh yeah. Dad has a lot of ideas actually, so we might be calling Shoto over a lot until school starts up again, he said, already thinking of all the fun things he and Shoto were planning on instead of training. Granted, they probably would actually train but some of that time would be spent at amusement parks and other childish activities. Ah. Yes. Good, Endeavor said. The rest of the dinner was spent in mostly silence. Izuku made idle conversation but not much of importance was actually said. When they were finished, once again Fuyamai swooped in to clean up and point blank refused Izuku's request to help. She made Natsuo help though. The two of them gathered up the dishes before disappearing into the kitchen. Well, Endeavor said, using the table as leverage to stand up. You boys have a nice night together. And with that, he left the room. That was uncomfortable, Shoto said, standing himself. I don't know what he's playing at but I am going to have a nice night with you so he grabbed Izuku and hoisted him up. Shall we? Izuku grinned we shall. Shoto closed the bedroom door behind him. Izuku stood before him, looking absolutely adorable. Then again he always looked rather cute. Shoto's eyes had been resting on his exposed legs more often than they hadn't. He watched his boyfriend move to his futon before just flopping into it. Your bed smells like you, he said. Yeah? Shoto asked with a chuckle. He walked over to the edge of the futon before leaning down onto one knee next to Izuku. You okay bunny? He asked, poking his side. Izuku made a soft chirping noise as he rolled onto his side. What was that? You made that noise the other day too. Ugh, Izuku groaned, covering his mouth. Sorry. I think the last quirk I picked up has some side effects. Last quirk? Oh. Shoto remembered. That's right. You turned into a rabbit at Kamino. Was that from the guy who turned into a bear? He asked, moving closer to Izuku. He nodded yet. I've tried turning into other things but it seems all I can change into is a rabbit. Izuku sat up a bit, nuzzling closer to Shoto. You smell nice, he said again, before outright shoving his face into Shoto's neck. Warm. Shoto placed a hand at the base of Izuku's neck. Can I see? He asked. I only saw the bunny from far away. Fieine, Izuku rolled his eyes, and with a quiet pop he'd transformed into a green rabbit. Shoto couldn't help it. He grabbed his boyfriend and pulled him close to his chest. His fur was so soft. You're so cute, he said softly. He adjusted him into his lap. Can I pet you? Izuku gave a curt nod. Shoto stroked a warm hand down his back. He petted his long fluffy ears, gently rubbing one between his pointer and thumb. Your ears are soft, he turned Izuku to cradle him in his arms like a baby. Cute. He mumbled, and buried his face into his fur. Pop. His face was no longer in fur but pressed into a yellow hoodie. Short fingers combed through his hair. Shao-chan, Izuku cooed. Shoto lifted his head up. Izuku was sitting in his lap sideways, legs tossed over his arm. Do you like soft things? He asked. I do, Shoto admitted. When I was growing up I always wanted a pet but that was never allowed. Izuku smiled and kissed his cheek. We can get a cat someday. He promised. I'd like that, he said before a thought occurred to Shoto. If Izuku could turn into a rabbit, could he only go full rabbit? Izuku. He started. Question about this new quirk. Can you just give yourself rabbit traits? Like, for instance, just the ears and tail. He was sure his face was bright red. Oh, maybe. Izuku said, sitting up in his lap properly. He didn't seem embarrassed by the request. I never thought to try. Shoto watched with bated breath as Izuku closed his eyes. His nose twitched and pop. 2 long green rabbit ears extended from his head. He grimaced sitting up more, rubbing the small of his back. Ouch. He then pulled down his pants slightly. Shoto felt like he'd been punched. There, that's better. The tail hurts being confined like that, Shoto. Shoto had reached around, grabbing the tail into his hand. He let go at once. Sorry, he said. Shoto had never been this excited in his entire life. Izuku looked so cute with those bunny ears. This had been everything he'd dreamed of. Was this real? This was real, right? Sorry, he said again. Just wow. Izuku flushed and squirmed under his gaze, looking down at Shoto through his long lashes. His long ears were back, his nose twitching. Shao-chan. He whispered. Shoto shivered. Do you like me looking like this? He asked, leaning in closer. Does it make you excited? Yes. Izuku pressed his hips down. Shoto gasped loudly, his hands grabbing Izuku's hips. Oh yeah, it does, he teased. Shoucha. He stopped, pulling back suddenly. His ears were up and at attention. His nose in the air. Someone is heading towards us. His ears and tail vanished with another pop. No sooner had they vanished that Shoto's window was pushed open. They both got to their feet. Shoto summoned fire in his left hand, and green electricity surrounded Izuku's body. A head of messy black hair was coming in through the window. A scarred arm. Will you two fucking relax? It's just me, a deep sardonic voice droned. It was Tuya. They both let their powers subside but kept at attention. Tuya? Shoto asked. Tuya flipped over the windowsill, now standing in his bedroom. He closed the window behind him. What? Where were you? How did you get in here? Sorry to drop in unannounced, he said, finally got a minute to slip away. Tuya leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets. Came to talk. Figured we were due for one of those. Izuku blinked before running to him with a grin. He threw his arms around Tuya, hugging him quickly. I'm glad to see you're okay. Tuya frowned, pushing him back. What happened after you left? Had to track down the League, he said, keeping Izuku at arm's length. That took a while since I had no clue where they ended up, but after 2 days I tracked them down again. Yelled at them for leaving me behind, but they took me back with open arms. No clue I betrayed all for one. Shoto and Izuku paused. Wait, Izuku said. You're still with them? I thought you'd changed sides. Shoto nodded in agreement. I wouldn't say I'm on a side, Tuya said. I'm not about to go hero just because I saved one snot-nosed brat, Izuku glared at him. But I'm not gonna just mindlessly work for Shigaraki either. Torturing kids for fun wasn't what I signed up for. All I cared about was making Endeavor suffer, maybe wise some people up to how broken the current hero landscape is. His blue eyes met Shouto's. I'm not going to be a puppet for anyone. So I figure I'll do what I want. What is it that you want to do? Why are you here if you're not going to help us? Shoto asked. Tuya laughed. Shao, relax. Who said I wasn't going to help you? I took a liking to your boyfriend here. I've decided to do some double agent work. Staying with the League means I can move around the way I'd like to. Plus, they trust me. I can keep you in the loop on their plans. What if you're telling them what we're up to? Izuku asked. Don't need to, Tuya shrugged. They have an inside man already. Dunno who, so don't ask. Only Shigaraki and Kurogiri talk to them. But they're well aware of what the school is planning. Dorm rooms, yet. That hadn't been announced to the public yet. So you don't need to worry about me. Besides, telling them what you tell me means admitting that we're talking at all. Izuku crossed his arms, thumping his legs again. Cute. So, what is the League doing now? Fuck all, Tuya groaned. We have no money, no place to stay, no plans. Shigaraki has been in a piss-poor mood since Kamino. Throwing tantrums left and right. Ugh, it's fucking annoying. He sighed and closed his eyes. I hate it. They're in shambles then? Izuku asked, a smirk sliding onto his face. Good. They deserve it. Shoto nodded. I agree. Wait, he turned his attention to Tuya. Wait, how are you here right now? This place has very tight security and... He laughed. Tuya was laughing so hard he gripped his stomach. Oh Xiao, you sweet summer child. You think I don't know how to break into my own home? I've been coming and going from this place for years. Who do you think keeps eating all the extra snacks? Xiaodo hummed in surprise. Oh. I thought Natsuo was crazy when he said his Pringles kept vanishing. Xiaodo. Endeavor's voice rang from down the hall. Xiaodo, I am coming to check on you. I am giving you ample time to prepare to be checked on. Tuya snarled, blue flame seeping off his palms. Fuck, I gotta hide, he said, looking around. Izuku grabbed Tuya and opened Xiaodo's closet, shoving him inside it and closing him in. Izuku then turned to Xiaodo and practically tackled him onto the bed. I am knocking. Endeavor called, giving the door a small knock. Izuku sat up from him, and pushed back as if they'd just stopped snuggling. The door slid open. How are things? He asked. Xiaodo glared. Why do you care? Get out. He grabbed a pillow, ready to throw it. Endeavor frowned. I'm turning in early. I just wanted to make sure you kids had everything you needed. Do you need anything? Some snacks? A condom? Xiaodo's entire face burned. Because if you do. Get out. Xiaodo yelled, throwing his pillow, smacking Endeavor directly in the face. I'm sensing you want some time alone. I'll see you in the morning. Have fun, he said, before shutting the door and walking away. Once his footsteps faded completely, Tuya burst from the closet, wheezing. He fell over onto his side, laughing like a madman, banging his fist on the floor. Oh god, ha ha ha. He pointed at Xiaodo. That's so fucking ha ha fuck, I'm gonna bust a stitch. Xiao, he fell into another fit of laughter. Izuku had curled his legs into his chest, very pink in the face. The number 2 hero just offered me a condom. How? Xiaodo, I don't think I can go on. You'll have to end my life. Tell my dad and Tosh I'm sorry, but I can't live in a world where Endeavor is spurring me on to have sex with his son. I'm gonna throw up, ha ha ha. Tuya yelled. Jesus fucking Christ, Dad, he said, holding his face in his hands. Oh fuck, that was great, he panted, finally getting himself under control. That just made my week. Ooh fuck, he said, turning to lay on his back. Thanks for that, Xiao. Xiaodo rolled his eyes, his cheeks still pink. Is that all you wanted? To tell us the league is doing nothing? Pretty much. And to get some phone numbers. I know Shigaraki wants to regroup and try to get his hands on Izuku here, Tuya said. Izuku let out a yelp. So I need to be able to get in contact with you. I doubt I'll be able to sneak into UA like I can here. He pulled out a cell phone. It was an old flip phone. Gimme your numbers. He and Izuku both entered their numbers into his phone before he stashed it back into his pocket. We'll need some place safe to meet up, Izuku said. I think I have one that'll work. He pulled out his phone and sent Tuya a message. That's an address that we can meet in. If you need time away from the league, or a warm bed to sleep in, you can go there. We left a spare key hidden under the mat, or I'm sure you could break in. It's my mom's old apartment, so don't break anything please. And if you sleep there, sleep in my room. Not my parents'. Gotcha, Tuya said and stood properly. Well, I best head out. He opened the window. I'll text you if things change. No news is good news. Xiaodo stood up. Wait, Tuya. What's your plan after the league is arrested? Are you going to come home? I mean, obviously not to Dad, but what about Yumi and Natsu? What about Mom? He asked. Tuya turned to him. I dunno, Xiao. Right now I dunno what I'm doing. I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I had one singular goal before. I'm not giving it up. Not for anything but... Their eyes met. I've been thinking there are some things that are just as important. For right now, just keep pretending I'm dead. He turned away, giving a small wave. See ya. With that, he was gone. Izuku waited before closing the window. You okay? He asked softly. Was he? He was glad Tuya was alive. But he still had questions about that. How had he survived? What had he been doing? He frowned. He was worried about his brother. Working with the League of Villains was dangerous. I think so, he said softly. It's okay if you're not, Izuku said, and sat on the futon next to him. However you feel is the correct way to feel about this, he said. I don't know how I'd be if my mom turned out to be secretly in the League of Villains. He leans into Shouto's right side. Do you want to talk about it? He shrugged. Not really. He said. Can we just go back to cuddling? Izuku smiled and wrapped his arms around him. Of course, Xiao-chan. Do you want to put our PJs on and watch another Disney movie? He asked. I was gonna get handsy, but honestly I don't think I'm in the mood anymore, Izuku giggled. Yeah, that sounds nice. Shouto said and pulled him close, though no promises about not getting handsy later. I've got you in my bed and you had bunny ears. After we calm down and more people go to bed. Maeib, Izuku teased. Let's watch a movie and see how we feel. They ended up watching The Little Mermaid. They sat together on Shouto's futon, his arm around Izuku's waist. Izuku had always enjoyed The Little Mermaid. The clear passion that had been poured into it was astounding. As the movie finished, Izuku looked up at his boyfriend. What did you think? Shouto hummed. I liked it. Better than Sleeping Beauty, he said. Not that Sleeping Beauty is bad, but... No, I get it, Izuku said. He closed his laptop and set it aside. Now what? He asked. Did you still want to try and fool around? His cheeks turned pink. It sounds so childish when you put it like that, he mumbled. I mean yes, but... Shouto sat up suddenly. Wait, I got something just in case. Well, his face turned even more pink. I got Natsu to get me something. It cost more than money, the way he laughed at me, but it will be worth it, he said and grabbed something from his dresser. He tossed it to Izuku. He caught the small bottle. Lube. Oh my god, Izuku said. Wait, Natsuo-san bought this? He asked. Damn, does your entire family know we're having sex? Just the men, Shouto deadpanned. Number. Izuku groaned. You're lucky you're so hot, he said and stripped off his pajama top. He met Shouto's eyes. So Tiger, you got lube, what are we gonna do with it? He asked. Shouto's eyes roamed his chest. I was hoping. He said before removing his own shirt and crawling into the futon next to Izuku to finger you until you come. Oh, Izuku said, his eyes growing wide. I mean. I won't say no. I haven't really. He blushed. Messed with that too much, but the one time I did I came pretty hard, he admitted so sure. I'm down. I can even suck you off after. He asked with a small grin. Please, Xiao-chan? Can I suck your dick? You're going to kill me, Shouto said before kissing him. I can kill you faster, Izuku cooed, pulling back. Pop. Green bunny ears protruded from his head. Shouto blinked, his entire face turning pink. Yep. Killing me. Take your pants off, he ordered. I need to see you naked like this right now. Yes sir. Izuku giggled and kicked out of his sweatpants. He pulled his socks off as well before sitting up on the futon on his knees. His cock was hard and flush against his stomach. You wanna fuck me, Xiao-chan? He tilted his head, his ears flopping slightly. Fuck, Shouto cursed before he pounced. He grabbed Izuku by the cheeks, kissing him deeply. His cold slid past his lips. Izuku purred against his lips. He pressed him into the bed, Izuku's warm arms grabbing him around his neck. Their bodies pressed together. Izuku groaned at the simple skin-to-skin contact. He pulled back from their kiss, a thin line of drool connecting their lips. I thought you were gonna fuck me, Xiao-chan. Shouto growled in arousal, pulling back and flipping Izuku onto his stomach. He made a yelp noise. Shouto grabbed his hips and pulled them up and closer to him. You're so cute, he said and pressed a kiss to his ass cheek. Ah Shouto. Izuku squeaked. Having fun back there? He asked. A cold hand wrapped around his fluffy tail. Oh. He cried out. See careful, that's sensitive. What an odd feeling. A body part he didn't have before. His tail and ears felt like they were hypersensitive. It's so soft, he said softly, gently petting his tail. Shouto seemed to marvel at the soft fluff, pulling it out to its full length. I didn't know they flipped their tails up. Or how long they were. And unlike the fake one on your costume, the bottom is white, he chuckled, my bunny is so cute. Izuku whimpered softly, so much. Shoto hummed softly, and let it go. He picked up and popped the cap of the lube. Izuku shuddered in anticipation. I read it's cold, he said. I'll warm it up for you. Izuku looked over his shoulder. Shoto was on his knees behind him, pouring a liberal amount of lube into his left hand. He closed the cap and placed it down. His cool right hand grabbed his ass gently. Izuku blushed. Shoto, do you mind if I put the bunny ears and tail away? It's the first time inside me, so I want to feel like myself, you know. Shoto blinked. Of course, he said, leaning down to press a soft kiss on his shoulder. Izuku, I love you. I want to pleasure you. Not just my cute bunny. With a pop, Izuku was his normal self again. Thanks, Shoto. I feel a bit more comfortable now. He leaned back to press a kiss on his lips. Someday, I'll be your good bunny and keep my ears and tail out. He smiled. Oh. And I love you too. He laid his head back down and pushed his hips back, hiding his face into Shoto's pillow now. Please put your fingers in me. Of course. Anything for you, Shoto said, a warm wet finger pushing against his hole. Izuku hissed in pain. Relax. Shoto whispered, rubbing one of his fingers over his hole gently. It felt good. That's it. He encouraged him, the tip of his finger sliding inside. Ooh. Izuku whined. It was somehow both too much and not enough. A slight burn, but it made him feel so full. His cock ached, dripping from the head. Shao, his voice broke off. See, can you touch my dick too? He asked. A cold hand gently wrapped around his cock. Like that? He asked, giving it a slow stroke. Izuku moaned. He could come just from this. He nods quickly. Shoto strokes him slowly, working his finger into him. Once he got to the second knuckle, Izuku's breath hitched. Too much? He asked, gently moving his finger inside him. Oh my god, he cried, trying to muffle his voice into the pillow. Shoto, don't stop, he begged. Not stopping, Shoto said, increasing his vigor. No, keep it slow, Izuku said, turning his head to look at him. Go slow, hurts a bit still. Shoto nodded, slowly fingering his ass as his other hand rubbed over the head of his cock in a way that made Izuku's eyes roll back into his head. Fuck. I won't last, he said. Shoto leaned close, his lips in his ear. That's okay. I want to see you come, Izuku. White hot pleasure. His eyes rolled back, drool dripping from his lips. Oh Shao, he tried, his voice cutting off as he came. The pleasure rolled from his lower stomach down his legs as they clenched, his toes curling. His back arched, his mind turning to static. It was like soda bubbles overflowed in his brain. He'd never felt this good in his life. Pleasure pulsed through his body, slowly fading as Shoto removed his hands. See mirror. He turned and used pull to bring Shoto down to him, laying his body over Izuku's. The skin-to-skin cuddles are somehow almost as good as the orgasm. I love you so much, you did so good. Shoto made me feel so good. I did. Shoto asked softly. I made you feel good. So much, Shao-chan, Izuku praised, pulling his head up just to kiss him softly. Made me feel so good. I love you. Let's get married. Do that every day, Izuku rambled. Shoto chuckled and snuggled closer. I'll spend the rest of my days making you feel good. I love you so much, he said. They shared a kiss. Now I believe it's your turn, Izuku grinned. They had a fun night. Chapter 45, Wild Discovery Dreamland, of Dreams. Chapter by Roxi2Star. It was Saturday. They still had a few weeks before the start of the new term, and Izuku's move into the dorms. Today was the day they'd picked for their group outing. Or as Izuku liked to refer to it, their secret triple date. Kiken was his best friend, and Shinsu had saved his and his dad's lives. He was going to get them the cheery boys of their dreams. He couldn't think of a better, sweeter place to push people together than Wild Discovery Dreamland. An animal-themed amusement park. He'd been a handful of times through the years. He knew they'd have a wonderful time. Izuku examined his outfit in the mirror. This was very much a date with Shoto, beyond a way to help his friends. He wanted to look nice. His hair had decided to agree with him that morning, the curls forming into a nice fluff on the top of his head. His scar over his nose brought out his freckles. He didn't have any acne either. He adjusted the blue short-sleeved hoodie. He wore it over a tight black t-shirt with a pair of jean shorts. He left the bathroom. "Hey Dad." He called into the house. "I'm about ready." His dad appeared from his bedroom. "Great. Do we need to pick anyone up?" he asked. "No, everyone else is taking the train," he said and grabbed his phone and wallet from the table. "No one else's parents felt the need to chaperone us," he said, sending a glare his father's way. Dad rolled his eyes, grabbing the car keys. No one else was kidnapped, with said kidnappers still at large. "Besides, I'm not going to be palling around with you kids. I'll just be in the park in case something happens." He slipped on his own shoes as Izuku grabbed his red sneakers. "Besides, I'm sure all your friends will understand me being overprotective. Especially Katsuki, Shinsu, and Shoto. They saw what you went through." Izuku cringed slightly. They had certainly seen some of the hell Izuku had endured. But they didn't know the torture he'd suffered at the hands of All for One. He shook his head, focusing on tying his last shoelace. He was going out with his friends. He didn't want to think about All for One. Never again if he could help it. "I just want to feel normal," he mumbled. If Dad heard him, he didn't say anything. "Come in, kiddo." He ushered him out of the door and locked the apartment behind him. Toshinori was at UA that day for a teacher meeting. Probably going over the coursework for the semester. Dad didn't have to go since he was a counselor, not a teacher. The rest of the guys were already there when Izuku and his father got to the gate. Shoto was the first to wave, pulling himself from the conversation he and Shinsu had been having. Beside them, Kaminari and Kirishima were having an animated talk over Kikken. Izuku ran to his friends first, stopping to give Shoto a kiss. "Hey," he said happily. "Hello, Bun," Shoto greeted. "Midoriya-san, he looked very handsome today." His hair was up in a half pony, dressed simply in jeans with a loose blue and white striped button-up shirt tucked into them. Kirishima and Kaminari grabbed him from both sides. "Mido bro," Kirishima cried. "Good to see you, not in a hospital bed." "Yeah, dude, gave us a hell of a fright," Kaminari said, shaking his shoulders lightly. "You look great, man." Kikken rolled his eyes. "Can we go inside now? I wanna go on the new coaster," he snapped. The group made their way in, getting their tickets scanned. "Isn't the new coaster super intense?" Shinsu asked, like a massive drop in a loop and junk. "Fuck yeah, it is. I'm gonna fucking take it on and tame it," he cried. Dad checked his phone. "Well, you kids have fun. I'm gonna go find a nice shady spot and get some work done on my laptop. Text me if you need anything," he said and gave Izuku's hair a ruffle. "See you later, Izu." He fixed his hat and sunglasses and gave them a wave. Dad was a minor celebrity now, dating All Might and everything. Luckily, he seemed to have Izuku's talent for blending in. "Bye, Dad," he yelled as his father walked away. "Man, he's turned into such a helicopter parent," he sighed dramatically. "Dude," Kirishima said, placing a hand on his shoulder, "you were just kidnapped." "I'm aware." Izuku snapped before covering his mouth with his hands. "Sorry Kirishima-kun. That came out so much more mean than I meant it to." The entire group gawked for a moment. Kirishima pulled himself together first. "And no worries, bro. I'd be touchy about it too. Let's just move on. What should we do first? I haven't been here in forever, so I wanna do as much as we can." "I've never been to a theme park before," Shoto said, stepping closer to Izuku, his hand taking his. Bless Shoto. All of the attention was diverted to him and his lack of experience. "Oh, dude," Kaminari cried. "Then we gotta do this right. We'll get the animal ears and hit all the classic rides and carnival games. Cotton candy, funnel cake, the works, dude." He was grinning as he grabbed Shoto's arm. "I saw a store selling the trademark Wild Discovery Dreamland Dream-Ears back there." He pointed and pulled Shoto, who in turn grabbed Izuku and dragged them along. As Izuku passed Shinsu, he grabbed him. Kirishima pulled Kikken along behind them. The Wild Discovery Dreamland Dream-Ear store of dreams sold more than just ears, but the various animal ears in different colors and styles were the main draw. "What kind of ears do you want, Xiao-chan?" Izuku asked, having freed them from Kaminari's grip. Kaminari was instead forcing a pair of purple cat ears onto Shinsu's head. Not to rain on anyone's parade, but how are we affording all of this? These are way overpriced. I've only got about 10,000 yen. Xiaodo pulled out his wallet. It's on me. Or rather, Endeavor. He showed him the silver credit card with the name Todoroki NG written on it. He thinks by giving me an unlimited card I'll like him more. Ah yeah, that'll do it, Shinso smiled. Fuck Endeavor, let's get the premium ears, Kaminari, he said to the blonde. Kaminari blinked, obviously confused. Won't you get in trouble spending all that money? He asked. And dude, that's his dad you're talking about. I appreciate your concern, Xiaodo said, now looking at the wall of animal ears. He reached over and grabbed a pair of very fluffy pink rabbit ears and turned towards Izuku, a slight smirk on his lips. But Shinso's right. Fuck Endeavor. Bun, these are very cute, and I think you should wear them. Izuku giggled. I think they're for a little girl. I doubt they'd fit on my head, he said, but they are cute. He reached past Xiaodo, grabbing a bright yellow pair of rabbit ears. They were a bigger size. He placed them on his head. How do I look? Xiaodo smiled and gave his cheek a quick kiss. Adorable. As always. My poor salad, Shinso sighed. Ooh, check out these fox ears, he held them up to Kaminari. You're pretty foxy, I think it'll suit you. Oh yeah. Hell yeah, man. Kaminari grabbed them and placed them in his hair. Foxy as can be, he said, his cheeks red. Izuku wiggled his eyebrows at Xiaodo, jerking his head towards them. Xiaodo only rolled his eyes with a smile. Izuku turned back to the wall. Oh. He grinned and stood on his tiptoes, while no one was looking at them. He used pull to bring a pair of ears that had been sitting on a high shelf. Red and white cat ears. These. It's the wrong way, the left ear was white, and the right ear was red. But I think these will be super cute. If that's what you want me to wear, Xiaodo lowered his head for him. Izuku placed the ears onto his head, careful of the ponytail. He was right. Xiaodo did look adorable. Thanks, Bun, he said earnestly. Kirishima pulled Kaken around the corner by the hand. Both of them had their ears on. Well, Kaken had black dog ears on his head. He looked annoyed to be wearing them, but he was slightly pink in the face. No one can resist their crush when they do something cute like this. Kirishima was wearing antlers. I think we're all set. Kirishima said. Ah, you guys all look adorable. Let's get these paid for. I'm gonna insist we take 1,000,000 selfies. I'm gonna send them to Mina and Hanta and make them super jealous we were here without them, Kaminari said, pulling out his phone. They paid and ripped and tossed the animal ear tags. Kaminari took a selfie with each of them. Kaken flipped the camera off in his selfie. They took a group picture in front of the Wild Discovery Dreamland Dream Castle of Dreams. Afterward, it was a debate about what ride Xiaodo needed to go on first. Dude, we have to do the log flume first. Log flumes are a classic. Kaminari argued. I wanna do the cheesy horror ride, Shinso said, looking at the map he'd picked up. Kirishima was leaning over his shoulder. We should do the merry-go-round. I know it's a kid's ride, but Todoroki hasn't ever been to a theme park before. It's something everyone should experience. I wanna ride that fucking roller coaster, Kaken growled. We can't just put Todoroki on the new extreme roller coaster first. That might kill him. We have to ease him into this, Kirishima said. Tunnel of Luv. Kaminari suggested with an eyebrow wiggle. There's the safari. I mean, it's an animal-themed park. We could start with the safari, Shinso said. Xiaodo leaned over to Izuku. What's your favorite, Izuku? Izuku hummed. I do like the roller coasters a lot. But Kirishima's right. They can be intense. Why don't we do the swings first? He offered. It's fun, easy, and gets you used to the idea of being on a ride. Plus the swings here are the tall kind that tilts. They have double seats too, so we can sit together, he smiled. We're riding the swings, Xiaodo said in a monotone voice. Simp, Kaminari teased, but the group followed. The Dreamland Dream Swings was a tall structure colored in pastels. The line wasn't long, so it only took a few minutes to get to their turn. Izuku pulled Xiaodo towards their pastel pink double bench. It was a bit of a tight squeeze, but with Xiaodo's arm around him, he didn't mind one bit. He pulled his ears off and placed them in his lap. Don't want to lose them. My boyfriend bought me these, he teased. Shoto removed his own. I'm your boyfriend, Izuku. Damn right, you are, he cooed and kissed his cheek. Kaminari and Shinsuke sat on the double bench in front of them. Shinsuke put his arm on the bench behind Kaminari. Not quite touching him, but they both looked happy. They smiled at each other, pink dusting their cheeks. Ah, Xiao-chan, look at them, he whispered. I'm not getting on a bench with you, Kaken yelled, instead getting in the single next to Shoto and Izuku's bench. The singles are on the outside. They go higher. Get in the one in front of me. Kirishima only smiled. Sure, fine, he said and plopped himself on his single bench. He turned around and gave Kaken a smile. The ride eventually started once they were all secure in their seats. It raised them off the ground. Shoto watched the ride operate with mild interest. So it just spins, right? He asked Izuku. He nodded. Interesting. And people, come here and pay money to spin. Thousands every day, Izuku said. It's a lot of fun, honestly. I like the swings. They give you the sensation of flying. As he spoke, the ride began to spin slowly. It wasn't until they were spinning fast enough for the swings to move outwards that Shoto's face changed from his normal neutral mask to a soft smile. He closed his eyes, the wind whipping through his hair, and Izuku fell in love all over again. He cuddled up to his boyfriend, squeezing him around his chest tightly. I love you so much, he whispered. Shoto looked down at him, that same soft smile on his lips. His pretty eyes met Izuku's. I love you too, he said softly. They rode a few more rides after that. Shoto seemed to enjoy most of them, though he admitted he wasn't a fan of the stomach flip feeling. The highlight of this part of the day had been the animal safari. Izuku had snagged a great picture of a tiger lounging in some water. Rare since they were nocturnal. They all stopped for lunch at some point, eating bad theme park foods. As they cleaned up their trash from their late lunch, the question of where to go next was fresh on their minds. If we don't get on that goddamn roller coaster. Relax, Kaken, we'll go, Izuku said. Let's do the old mill ride. It's right next to it, and it'll give us some time to settle our stomachs before the roller coaster. Kaken glared. You just wanna suck face with half and half, he accused. If I wanted to make out with Shoto, I would have just had him come over, Izuku argued back, a blush across his cheeks. Let's just go, he said, motioning for the group to follow. They walked in pairs. Izuku had to pat himself on the back. Things were going pretty well so far. No breakthroughs yet, but Kaminari and Shinsuke were very blushy with each other and flirted back and forth. Kirishima and Kaken weren't as flirty, but Kaken was much less grouchy than he normally was, which in terms of Kaken was him falling in love. But Izuku still had some tricks up his sleeves. The old mill, or better known as the Tunnel of Love ride. Or, in this park, the Dreamland Dreamboat ride of love and dreams. A very cute ride about animals being in love. Cheesy as hell, but very dark inside and often made for a great cuddling opportunity. They got through the line and were all seated in the same boat. Kaken and Kirishima up front, Kaminari and Shinsuke in the middle, with Izuku and Shoto in the back. Perfect in Izuku's opinion. A view of the future couples to gauge their progress. Meanwhile, they had their backs turned so Izuku really could suck face with Shoto if he so chose. He hadn't decided yet. Oh, how many people do you think got a handy in this ride? Kaminari asked as soon as their boat launched onto the track. Shinsuke snorted. Fuck, man, probably a lot, he said. I would hate to take a black light to this thing. Don't talk about gross shit. Kaken yelled. I don't think that many, right? I mean, the theme is a bit silly. Not very sexy, Kirishima interjected. Izuku couldn't help himself. Don't be so sure. There was a Garfield-themed ride in a park in the US that, according to the YouTube video I watched on it, a lot of people were gay in the Garfield ride. Hey, Kaminari, can I give you a handy on the Garfield ride? Shinsuke deadpanned. I thought you'd never ask. Shoto pulled Izuku in close. Why do you know about people being gay in the Garfield ride? Also, who is this? Garfield. The entire boat laughed. Izuku was still fighting off giggles when he finally choked out, It's closed now, he giggled. Shoto, how are you so cute? He asked, throwing an arm around his neck. The conversations turned quiet as the four boys took turns making fun of the ride. Kaminari had his arm around Shinsu, while Kirishima was holding Kiken's arm, and Kiken hadn't said a word about it. Izuku leaned in to whisper to Shoto, "I think this is going super well." He looked down at him, looking soft in the low pink light. "I'm not sure, but everyone seems to be having a good time," he said. "I'm certainly having a wonderful time." He smiled, giving a soft sigh of contentment as he leaned closer to Shoto until their foreheads touched. "You are? That makes me happy. That was the whole point. Making you happy. I'd like to have come as a kid. I told Fuyamai we were coming here today. She said they came once before I was born. She told me she remembers riding the merry-go-round with Tuya," he said softly. "I should ask if he remembers that too." Izuku nodded. "That's a great idea," he said softly. "You look really nice right now," Shoto's voice dropped to a whisper. Izuku shivered at his low tone and the sudden topic shift. "Sorry, I just... You started talking, and all my thoughts went away, aside from how handsome you look right now. Shoto." He whispered back before kissing him. They had to be careful and quiet. If anyone turned around they'd likely be made fun of for the rest of the outing. Izuku also didn't want to make anyone too uncomfortable and psych them out. Then again, seeing very passionate kissing might push it up further in their minds. Make them all want to get kisses of their own. Oh, and that was Shoto's tongue. Who needs thinking? Certainly not Izuku. Not when there was a Shoto to kiss. Kissing Shoto was downright addicting. His mouth always tasted vaguely minty. He usually smelled like campfires, but today he was wearing cologne. It must be new. It was deep and a bit earthy, his natural campfire smell gently lacing in with it. It was sexy. Izuku didn't think he'd thought a scent was sexy before. And yet, his lips were soft, and his hands always found just the right place to grab Izuku and squeeze until he couldn't take it. He choked back a whine as Shoto's cold hand laced through his hair. Something flicked Izuku's temple. He pulled back with a very soft pop noise. Shinsu had reached around to flick him. He hadn't turned his way all the way back to try and not alert Kaminari. He gave them a stern look and mouthed, "In front of my salad." Izuku mouthed right back. That was only funny the first 3 times. The ride was about over, so Shinsu had done him a service. They got off the boat. "Well, that sucked ass," Kiken said as they left the exit. "Roller coaster time." "Yeah, it's time, Baku bro," Kirishima said. "We'll get you on that coaster." Kiken crossed his arms and allowed Kirishima to guide them. "I wanna sit in the front." Izuku giggled. "You think you'll be okay on a roller coaster?" he asked. "They go pretty fast and usually have a few stomach drops." "I'll be fine," Shoto said. His lips were a bit kiss swollen. It made Izuku's heart flutter. "I doubt it can be any worse than fighting a villain," he said, sounding rather confident. "It was so much worse," Shoto groaned. They were pulled over to the side of the exit. Shoto was crouched down, trying to calm his stomach. Izuku stood over him holding his cat ears. "People do that for fun? What the fuck is wrong with them? That was terrible. That was the coolest fucking thing ever. What are you talking about, Scarface?" Kiken yelled. "Quit being a bitch, baby. It wasn't that bad." Izuku sighed deeply, reaching down to rub Shoto's back. "It has 3 loops back to back, Kiken. That's too many loops. I like roller coasters, and I thought that was too much," he said. "Shao-chan, baby, are you okay? Why don't we hit the carnival games? No more rides for a little while." Shoto stood up slowly. Let's just go," he said mournfully. The group made their way to the carnival area of the park. There were several stands with a multitude of prizes. "If you see any game you want to try or a prize you won," Izuku stopped in his tracks. His eyes had landed on a shooting game stall. Specifically the prize on the top shelf of the stall. A stuffed bald eagle dressed as All Might. "Oh my god," he cried. Wild Discovery Dreamland almost never had hero merch. When did Toshinori make a deal with them? Unless it was unlicensed. It didn't matter. He needed it. "Deku, we're going on without your dumb ass," Kiken called. "Come on, shitty hair, I bet I can hit that fucking mallet bell game harder than you. You are so on, dude." Izuku paid them no mind, tugging Shoto to the shooting stall. "I need that all-might eagle," he whispered. Shoto rolled up his sleeves and placed his cash on the counter. "Give me the gun," he told the stall runner. He took hold of the wooden gun. "What do I need to get him that stuffed toy?" "3 bullseyes and 3 shots, the operator told him. "You get 3 tries to get 3 bullseyes in a row," he said. "So, 9 shots altogether." He took aim and fired. His first 3 shots missed. But his 4th clipped a target. The 5th shot was just outside of the bullseye. His 6th shot hit it dead on. Then his 7th did. Even though he had a 9th shot, if he didn't land this last one, it was over. Shoto took a long breath and fired. He hit it. "Wow! Nice job! Not many people can do that," the operator said, grabbing Izuku's prize. He handed it to Shoto. "Here, bunny," he said, handing the toy over. Izuku hugged it to his chest. "Thank you, Shao-chan," he cried, stepping closer to his boyfriend. "It's perfect. That was super impressive. Hitting all those shots like that," he hummed. "My dad is good at those shooting games too. I have to have good aim with my quirk, so," Shoto said. "Where did the others say they were going?" "Dunno," Izuku shrugged. "Wanna split some cotton candy with me while we look for them?" He pointed to a stand. "I haven't had any in a long time. And I bet you've never had cotton candy." Shoto smiled, already heading towards it. "Well, Kaminari did say it was a theme park staple. Wild Discovery Dreamland Dream Cotton Candy Stall of Dreams," Shoto read the sign. "Are all theme parks named this terribly?" Shoto asked as they waited in the short line. Izuku giggled. "No, most places are well named. This place is pretty fun though. Even if its naming convention is lazy," they were up at the counter. Izuku got them a large pink and blue bag of cotton candy. They walked together as Izuku opened it up and ripped a piece off. "Here," he held it out to Shoto. He took the bite from his fingers. That's pretty good. A little too sweet, but I don't hate it. I get ya," Izuku said. "I can only have a few bites before the sugar becomes too much." "What the fuck do you mean I don't win? I hit the bell, didn't I?" Kiken's voice wasn't far. They turned the corner of the stalls. Kiken and Kirishima were standing in front of a strength test game, Kiken brandishing the comically large mallet at the stand operator. "Well." Kirishima grabbed his arm gently. "Bro, it's a game of skill, not just raw strength." "I hit the bell." Izuku handed his all-might eagle and the cotton candy to Shoto before swooping in. He got right behind Kiken and pinched his side. "Bad Kiken. We respect service workers." "Aha." Kiken started laughing loudly as Izuku and Kirishima pushed him away from the game. "Sorry about him." Kirishima yelled to the stall worker, "Let's go find Kami and Shinsu." It turned out they didn't need to go far. They were only a handful of stalls away. Kaminari was just finishing a ring toss game. Shinsu stood next to him holding a massive black stuffed cat. They watched just in time for Kaminari to win the game and point to an equally massive golden cat. He handed it right to Shinsu, who grinned from between them. "What ya got there, Shinsu-kun?" Izuku asked. "Oh, these," he said, turning and motioning to the massive stuffed cats. "These are my babies. Chonko and Fuckass. I'd die for them. Denki here won them for me." Kaminari grinned. "It's my secret talent. I'm just dummy good at carnival games," he grinned, "plus Hitachi needs as many stuffed cats as humanly possible." Izuku turned and grinned up at Shoto. He mouthed to him given names. He grabbed his eagle back. "That's sweet. Shoto won me this all-might plush too." He grinned at the group. The daylight was starting to disappear, giving the park a soft orange glow. "We should probably think about heading out soon," he said. "Wanna hit the Ferris wheel and go get some dinner?" he asked them. Kirishima frowned. "The Kugu and I actually have plans for dinner," he said, "so we'll be out." Shinsu shrugged. "I'll go if Denki does. I love you too, but I'm not about to be a third wheel when you're high from all this love in the air." "Hell yeah, I'm down for food." Kaminari grinned. Izuku smiled. "Awesome. I'll text my dad we're about ready. So Ferris wheel to cap it off, then food." He pulled out his phone, sending his dad a quick text. "Let's go." Izuku and Shoto got on their little carriage first. The seats weren't very large. They could probably fit 3 if you squeezed, but with 2, it was comfortable. Shinsuo and Kaminari loaded up behind them, with Kiken and Kirishima in the last one. Slowly, the Ferris wheel turned. Eventually, the positions allowed Izuku to sneak a peek down at his friends. "Xiao-chan, look," he said softly. He and Shoto leaned over the edge. Shinsuo had his cat plus high stuffed at his feet. His arm was not just on the bench behind Kaminari but around him. They were leaning into each other. They looked happy cuddled up. Beyond them, further down, Kiken and Kirishima were sitting close together. They weren't cuddled up, but Izuku could tell by the slope of Kiken's shoulders he was relaxed. He grinned up at Shoto, ready to talk more about what a good matchmaker he was before he was taken aback. The sunlight was hitting the back of Shoto's head in a way that made his breath catch in his throat. The sun shone off his red and white hair, softening the colors to give him a little glow. The way the light caught in his eyes, making them shine through his long bangs. His lips looked so soft and inviting. Shoto was staring back, his eyes wide. He inhaled audibly, his eyes wandering Izuku's own face. "Something on my face?" Izuku asked. "Freckles," Shoto whispered, moving in closer. "I was counting them." "Something on mine?" "No," Izuku nuzzled his nose. "Just thought you looked nice." "Couldn't help but stare," he said and pressed a kiss to his lips. Shoto made everything better. Being with him, kissing him. Izuku couldn't imagine life without this wonderful man at his side. He'd die for him. He knew that now. He'd do anything to keep a smile on his beautiful face. He was so perfect and deserved so much. Izuku would give him everything he ever asked for. He loved him so much. The rest of the day passed by without incident. They left the park all in a good mood. They had a nice dinner, chatting happily about their day. Dad dropped everyone off before he and Izuku made it back to the apartment. Izuku was so tired as he entered the place, kicking off his shoes. Dad was right behind him, yawning himself. Might turn in early," he said. "Tosh said he'd be home late, so the house is yours, kiddo," he said. "Have a good day with your friends." "Yeah." He grinned. Seemed like they all had a good day too. Dad gave his hair a ruffle. "Good. Well, night kiddo." "I love you," he said before heading to his bedroom. "Night Dad." Izuku called. "Love you too." He headed over to his own bedroom. He could probably get some work done before the day was over. He still had summer homework after all. He opened the bedroom door. It didn't have his nameplate on it. He'd left it back home. His room didn't smell like his old one. It was big. The bed was new and big. The covers were new. The posters on the wall were new. He placed his stuffed eagle onto the bed and closed the door behind him. Here he was. Alone in a room that wasn't exactly his yet. He was alone. The thought made his skin itch. He shook his head. What was wrong with him? Why did he suddenly feel like garbage? Today was great. He spent the day with his friends and his boyfriend. He should be feeling great right now. Right? Izuku sat on the bed and laid his face down on the sheets. They smelled nice. But not the same. They're too fresh. Why wasn't he happy? Here he is, living with All Might, his dad's boyfriend. His dad was happier than ever. He had Shoto in his life. He had so many great friends. All for One was in prison and he'd never touch Izuku again. The league was out there but Tuya had sworn up and down they were in shambles. School would be starting up soon and he'd be living with his classmates. He could sneak into Shoto's room anytime he liked. Izuku curled up into a ball. He should be happy. Why wasn't he happy? It was over, wasn't it? He was supposed to be the happy, soft, and kind Izuku. Like his mom. Izuku. You're like your mother. Kind. Soft. No. That was over, damn it. He spent the night crying until he fell asleep on top of his covers. Alright, that's where we'll leave off for the day. Thanks so much for listening along with me today. If you enjoyed, please like and comment down below and check out the video or playlist on the screen for more content from me. I look forward to seeing you next time. Ciao for now, lovelies.